Okay, so we're going to get started up again. Today we're doing kind of an evolution of what we did last class. So last class we were able to get our first kind of sun-sky system working, but as you noticed in the renderings, the sky was just our traditional clear blue sky. No clouds, nothing too fancy. And the truth is that often when we do our renderings, we want the big dramatic clouds or the big sunset or whatever. And Rhino/V-Ray has a way of doing that where you put in a background image, so to speak. And you guys remember from the 135 lectures we talked about high dynamic range images, which are images that contain more color information than is actually shown in the final image. We will use these HDRI images in spherical panoramas to provide that sky system for us. So the clouds and the sunset and the whatever all that stuff is that you want to see, we're going to use those systems. Today I'm going to walk you through how to get one, modify it, make it match up with your existing sun, or make the sun match up to it. But I do want to point out before we get too far that if you go under tutorials and you go under V-Ray, I've tried to make your life a little bit easier. And if you go to quick rendering setups, there's a bunch of scenes, and you can see the clouds in the sky on these renderings that I've already set up for you, where I have, here's where you download the HDRI background. These are not my images. Then I tell you what the sun settings are, what time of day it should be. I give you what the ideal camera settings should be. So I'm trying to make it so that you could recreate this. Furthermore, I have a VisOpt file that loads all the settings for you, so you don't actually have to do it. But for the purposes today, I want you to actually learn how to do it in case you're not using one of my presets. But I have a variety of sunsets that you can use, etc. So recognize that they're there should you want to go about recreating a particular scene. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Let me go to today's exercise. And attached to today's exercise is a background HDRI that we're going to use for the purposes today. Now, one of the challenges with our HDRIs is that some of them, because they're shot as a photograph, contain trees or buildings or something in the field of view such that you might do your rendering and see the tree or something. And so they don't always look perfect. The one that I have as a sample here is available free online, this cloudy sky zip. I already have it on my flash drive here, if I can find it. And we could take a quick look at what it looks like here. So there's your spherical panorama, okay? So here's the cloudy sky. It looks pretty nice. But see how there's these trees on the horizon? This will work fine in my San Francisco downtown because I have buildings that would cover all of those trees. But if I had something that was wide open off to the horizon, I would be seeing this field and or these trees, and so it might not be ideal, okay? The better panoramas are shot like right on the coast or in an area where you can see almost to the horizon. And some of those I have links to some of those. Let me pull up this one, for example. Right, so here it's shot kind of on the coast. There's very few things that stick up in the horizon, few little objects. And if you plan it right, you can kind of hide those in your scene. So depending on where somebody shot it, you may get better or worse results with how they drop into a particular scene. So let's go ahead and work through how this would go into the scene. I have my San Francisco downtown open here. And I'm going to go to my layers. I'm going to create a new layer for environment. And I'll create a sublayer for sun. And we're ultimately going to be working with that. Once I have those established, we'll make the sun layer active for right now. I can do it really in any order. I can put the sun in first, or I can put the background in first. The point is that I have to get the two of them to match up with each other. And so I do have tutorials that walk through exactly how this works. If you go to V-Ray, and we come down here, to HDRI plus sunlight, 8.26. This basically walks you through how to make the two of them match up. And I'll go through this live for you guys as well. Okay, so first thing I need to do is let's go ahead and load the background HDRI. So I'm going to go to my V-Ray options, the little O here. I'm going to go to environment. And just like last time in the skylight and the reflection background, we're going to click on the M, the small lowercase m. And we went to text sky last time. This time we're going to go to text bitmap. And we're going to look for that HDRI, which was cloudy sky. Now, oftentimes there'll be two different cloudy sky examples, and it looks like both of mine are blurry, which is not particularly helpful. One should be the GI version, one should be a clear version. And let me read down those because they look wrong. Hold on a second. Make sure this one is correct. Okay, that's fine. Okay, good. Sorry, bear with me for a second. I'm going to take these two and recopy them because somehow I got a bad version here. All right, so now we can see one is clear and one is slightly blurry. The blurry one is used for the skylight, and the clear one is used for the background. So let me jump back over into Rhino here. When I pick my file, we're going to go into resources. Okay, since I'm doing the background, I'm going to do the clear one. Go ahead and say OK. And there's a few options here that are important. I need to scroll all the way down to the bottom. And under UVW, I need to change my general channel to environment. And the mapping type is spherical. So both of those need to be set. If you don't set those, they won't turn out. Okay? So I have those two settings set. We're going to come back and repeat this for the skylight. So I'll click on the M again. This is a text bitmap. It's going to be the GI version, the blurry version. I'll go ahead and say OK. If you download a set and they only have a clear version, they don't have a blurry version, you use the same one for both. Okay? So once again, I have to scroll down here to my UVW. This needs to be environment. And my mapping type should be spherical. And I'll go ahead and say OK. So I now have those two loaded, which is good. Okay? The next thing that I need to do is I need to drop my sun into the scene. So we have two different ways of working this. We can adjust the sun to the background, or we can adjust the background to the sun. And the way that I think is easier is to adjust the background to the sun. The only challenge with that is if you're trying to use, say, an image that has ocean in it and you want to see the ocean, sometimes you might do the opposite. You might adjust the sun to the background. It just depends. So anyway, let me go ahead and put a sun in. So I'm going to click on the V-Ray Sun tool here, uncheck, and I'll come down here once again, find place, Francisco. There it is. And I don't know, let's set it for the afternoon. A little bit later, yeah, about like that. Okay, and I'll go ahead and say OK. Remember, I actually have to put it in the scene. So let me drop it in the scene. Right there is my sun. Okay, and now I need to kind of give myself a guide. And because of the buildings and stuff, I can't really see it. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off the buildings and the ground. And I'm going to, under the environment layer, I'm going to add a new sublayer. And we'll call this infinite plane. And I'll go ahead and add an infinite plane underneath my objects, which is right here. And remember that it may be floating somewhere off in space. Let's make sure it's on the infinite plane layer. Okay, and I'm going to create one more layer. Oops. Let me create a sublayer. And I'm going to call this sublayer sphere. Okay, we'll make this active. And I'm just going to draw a simple primitive sphere on my infinite plane. Let's move it vertically so that it's up above the plane for the most part. So about like that. Okay? Then we can zoom selected, and there it is, and we can kind of see it. Okay? So you guys seen those lawn ornament things that are like those mirror balls that people put on their front lawns or whatever? Okay? That's essentially what we're creating because it's a perfect reflection. So I'm gonna put a material on this ball that is chrome so that it's really, really reflective, like a mirror. So let me go into my materials. I'm going to go ahead and load a material. And I have Chrome already on my flash drive. If you don't, you can download it. So let's see here. Go to Metal, Chrome, right? And I'm just doing the basic Chrome here. Say Open. And let's apply this to my selection. Okay, so it's just on that selection. Now I'm going to switch my view into the top view so I can look straight down at my ball here. And I'm going to go ahead and render. And my size doesn't have to be all that great, okay, or my quality. But what I'm looking at here is where's the shadow being cast? So the sun is obviously on this side going this direction, casting a shadow on my ball. And where is the sun in this reflected image of the sky? So the sun is kind of over here, and it really needs to move down a little bit to match up. Okay, so I'm going to go back into my background image. So we'll go to my options, and I'm going to start with my reflection. Scroll all the way down here, and we have under the UVW type, I've got a horizontal rotation. So let's try a rotation of maybe 270. And I'll say OK. And I'll re-render. OK, so I was here. I've moved myself around to here, right, clockwise. But I still need to go a little bit further, so maybe more like 330 or so. And go to Options. Scroll all the way down here. We'll try this at like 330. Oops, 330. Let's render again. It's starting to get pretty close. Okay, maybe back slightly. And go to my options. And let's go to maybe 320. And we'll render. There we go. So my bright spot is right here. Matches up to the direction of the sun. Now, this bright spot is relatively low on the horizon. I picked a time in the afternoon where the sun was relatively low, so they kind of matched up. I already knew that, so I cheated a little bit. Okay? But if it was noon, obviously the sun would be higher. So in your background image, the sun should be higher. If it was sunset, right, the sun would be even lower. Okay? So now that I've established this and I have my background matched up nicely to where the sun in my sky matches up the sun in V-Ray, right? Now we can go ahead and go back to setting up my overall image for a final render. Okay, so I'll move back to the perspective. I'll turn off the sphere and the infinite plane. I don't need those anymore. I'll turn back on the city model. And I'll make sure that my building gets inserted correctly. Okay. Unfortunately, I managed to not save my building from last class, so I have to reinsert it. Let me go to Set View. Let's go to Perspective 2 here. Let me turn on my building site. And I'm going to insert it once again. Blocks, Insert Block Instance. And let me pull up. Oops. Linked. came in with an infinite plane. Hold on a second. Blocks, insert block instance. Let's try. There we go. We're going to link it. We'll replace and apply to all. And then we pull this up so we can get this in position here. And I actually want to see the other side of my building, so let's do this. Let's move this right there. And let me rotate this to match up here. Perfect. So now I have that established, right? Let me go ahead and drop my view down. So we'll go back to perspective 02. Actually 02. I probably need to go back and rework my materials. They may not even come out, but I want to show you a couple other things about rendering. So maybe you noticed, maybe you haven't noticed, but on these computers in this lab, when you first log in, there's a little thing that pops up down here that if you expand it, looks like this. Anybody seen this before? Okay. Chances are you said, nah, I don't want that, and you closed it, right? Change your habit. This will save your life, okay? This thing is called the distributed rendering spawner, okay? And what it does is it allows you to borrow resources when you render from other computers that are on the network, okay? It has to be enabled. It used to be enabled in every computer in the ET building, which means that if somebody was working on any computer over there or in 124, this was running in the background, and if they weren't using the computing power, you could, right? I'm working on getting it reinstalled. When they switched to Windows 10, they got rid of this, and I had a fit, and so at least I've got it back in this lab, okay? But it's like karma, okay? You have to leave this thing open because someday you want somebody to leave it open for you, okay? So I'm going to show you how to get access to this because we're going to start rendering in a way that kind of requires more computing power, okay? When you're using the render spawner, you can cut your render times down very dramatically. Something that may have taken a couple days to render might take 30 minutes to render because you're using so many different computers. Okay? Gene, you were in here this morning doing some renderings at 6:30 or whatever, and nobody was here, and he had the whole lab working on his rendering. It went real fast, didn't it? Yeah. So it makes a big difference. Okay? So now that we're here, let's show you how to open that up. Okay, so once again, I'm going to go to the options. Okay, this time I'm going to go to System. Okay, and in System, there's something called Distributed Rendering. I can check the box to turn it on, and then next to it is a ... button that says Hosts. If I click on that, so far I have no hosts, but I can find available servers. And so we have to be a little patient while this does this. Okay, it pops up and it says, guess what? There's 25 render spawners available right now. Would you like to add them? Yes, I would like to add them. Okay, I will also click when I'm done finding the servers. I'm going to go ahead and click Resolve Servers. Good, so I have their actual IP addresses. And then I need to check them. So I'll go through. You might get lucky and be able to do maybe 10 at a time. Sometimes it crashes. It's a little iffy. Okay, so I'll do a few of them. Oh, good, it didn't crash, right? Probably a good time to save this, too. All right, so we'll go back and see if we can add some more here. Now, just because I've selected all of these 25 spawners doesn't mean I'll actually get them, okay? Because I might try to access them, and at the same time one of you is trying to access them, or your computer is doing its own rendering or whatever, so it's going to pick from what's available. Okay? So I'll go ahead and say, okay, they're all loaded in for me. And now I'll go to my options. I'm going to go to my camera and make sure my physical camera is on, right? My shutter speed is set to about 300. My environment is set. That's there. I'm going to go to Output, And I'm going to give myself a little bit different aspect. Okay, thus far we've been rendering what we have, but since it's a skyscraper, I want it to be taller. So we'll leave the width for right now at maybe 200, and we'll do a height of maybe 1,000. So I get a little bit taller view. Okay. And now it's time to go ahead and render. So when I click on the render, and this is one of the things that you'll notice in using the distributed rendering, is when you click on render, it's not as fast. Like, it doesn't start right away. It takes a little bit of time. And if you read, right, it can show you that it's trying to do stuff. Okay? So right now I'm only connected to my computer because I only have that many threads. Okay? We'll see if it picks up on any of the other computers in a second. One of the reasons it takes a while for the other computers to pick up is because you're trying to send out a bunch of files to all these computers and transmit the HDRI background and whatever so that the other computers have all the files. Okay, so sometimes it makes it, and in this case my rendering is such that it may not actually get there. All right, I'd have to up my size. And in my progress window, right, so here we go. This is where it asked for, are you available on all these computers? And it actually connected to a bunch of the computers that are out there. It just is moving too fast to actually populate all of them. Okay, so anyway, I'll do a rendering that's a little bit taller. What will happen when you connect to more than one is you'll get multiple computers listed as you're doing the rendering. Okay, so I wanted to at least introduce you to that because it's the first time that you really start doing that and benefiting from the distributed rendering. Okay, so we talked about distributed rendering. We talked about establishing the sunlight system. Remember, today I want you to go through having to adjust based on the background, so I want you to use the cloudy sky. When you're done with that, however, if you want to experiment with some of these other quick rendering setups, right here, I've just helped you out, right? So in this case, if you download this cloudy sky, it tells you where to download it. It tells you the sun settings, so you would set it for San Francisco on 5/2/2016 at 2:30 p.m. in the afternoon, right, with daylight savings on. It tells you the shutter speed should be 200 with the physical camera on, right, etc. We could come down here. Maybe you want to do something where it's a sunset scene, like you like this one. Okay, you can download it there, right, and it gives you a few settings for what you should be doing and where, etc. Okay. In this particular one, this sunset, the sun is actually down, so you'd have to turn the sun off altogether because it's below the horizon. But anyway, you get the idea. Okay. So I at least want you to know that these are there, and then you can work from them. All right. Let me make sure I don't have any other things. I don't think so. I think you're good. Okay. Next class, we're going to talk about unrolling your skyscrapers, unrolling surfaces, and we'll kind of go through that, which is the last part of what you need for your assignment 203, which you're also kind of working on at the same time. Okay. Any questions? No? All right.